It always comes to this. Morning guys, back again to do another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I showed off the tentacles on my hand here that Rick and I did on Monday this week. All the swelling has gone down. They've got that kind of crispy shell-like texture you get when a tattoo is about to kind of start peeling. This is Thursday morning, so it's been 2.5 days. I don't know, it seems like it's going to be a really breezy heal. My hand actually took the work a little bit better than a lot of my arm has been even. Some spots like in here, for example, the hand did way better than, or even the spot we did last week in here, that's still dry and healing. And a lot of the color didn't take as well, and I'll always be the first to admit. Obviously, it doesn't really matter, because by now, by looking at me, you can tell I'm going to do the work it takes to get the result I want, but always full disclosure on everything that happens here. Sometimes things don't go perfect the first time. Well, they never go perfect the first time for the most part. So it's just about, how much patience you've got. It's less about getting the right artist to do the right thing and more about being open to experimenting and trying new things. And if it sounds like I'm being a broken record on that one, because sometimes people will say, oh, you've already mentioned, or it's like, I found with social media, you kind of have to say the same thing over and over again. If I had access to 35 different languages, I would be saying it in all of them every time I do one of these vlogs, and there'd still be people who either didn't have the video in their feed or glossed over details or whatever the hell else, and then later they'll try this stuff and they won't get the result they want, and I cannot be held accountable for that. Rightfully so, some tattoo artists, in my opinion, are apprehensive to get into this because a lot of people, they don't have the patience to do that dance. They just don't. Some people out there, they just want to travel to an artist and have it done overnight, and that's not going to be the case with any of this. It should be, telling that I've had 36 sessions on this sleeve and I'm not finished yet. Now, of course, the level of detail that I've got will dictate more sessions than what we did on the rose sleeve, obviously, being that this is big, bold, and simple. And this is incredibly detailed and elaborate, like the stuff on my torso. I was working on my torso for 1.5 years straight, maybe closer to 2 years, the better part of 2 years anyway, when we first started the black and white on black. And so your mileage will vary based on more or less, what you're in for detail-wise, how many colors you want, what level of clarity you're looking for. If you just want some faint difference, like I seen Daiko Kaito Nero, you think that's his name. I always have a hard time pronouncing his name. He just recently did a black on black spot on his back. It's like just a big round black circle thing, and I'm pretty sure all he's looking for there is distinction from the old black, and so that can be done on one pass. But if he was looking for to make that thing as defined and punchy as he likes, what I would recommend is doing some white shading on the outside of it, or a bold, hard black outline, or even a color outline. I would do red in his case because he has red accents anyway. And then that would punch the whole thing out more, but that's not my business. I'm just saying that if he theoretically would like that to be more striking than it is now, it is doable. It's just going to take more outside the box thinking than he's currently using. With that said, obviously I had another session. I mean, I can't hide that. It's right out in open. At least part of it is. We did the rest of the spider webs, and this was more or less paint by numbers for us now, because once we established that web shape down here, and then we have another one up here, it's a little harder to show off. It made sense to me that we needed to do another big web opening up on the shoulder cap, especially given we had the most space there. It just made sense to play off of that into the neck. We brought it up just slightly into the roses here, built off of, but they're not covering any of the roses. I wanted it to be more or less just behind everything that was in the foreground, and that they are background elements. If they were to be foreground elements, we would be perhaps brightening them or using thicker lines, but they're just there to break up the red. And I found, especially on my shoulder, this shoulder here, for whatever reason, we were having a harder time saturating that. But when you look in close here, the red in between this little tentacle here was done with a smaller mag, because you can't get in there with a giant weed whacker. And that red is denser, even if it's just so slightly. It makes a big difference kind of long run, because when color isn't saturated properly, and so often this is the case with work over black, it will just kind of keep fading away. That's the case with anything. Like if you see a black and gray tattoo and the black really isn't in there, that tattoo is just going to keep lightening up because it's not in the right layer of skin. And as the skin layers kind of replenish and degenerate over time, that work's just going to keep looking softer and softer and softer. And in some cases, you'll actually lose the tattoo body altogether. I've seen that. We had an apprentice at the shop here a long time back, and they could not get black in the right layer of skin, and it just kept getting lighter. Like a client would come back a few weeks later needing a touch-up because none of the work was dark enough, and basically the whole image is falling away at that point. So more than that you can't do it, it's that if you don't have it in, it won't stay. So, for example, all that red is nice and in there now, and it will stay. But there were parts of my shoulder that were really, really, like, they're thinner than the spots on, say, my other shoulder or my arm or my neck. So, there's a few spots like that on my wrist, too. It's hard to even point them out on camera, maybe in here, where I can still see some black stripping through it. And it just is what it is. If I would like to, we can get in there with a 7 mag or even an 11 mag in places, and we can do another pass on that, and probably pack it denser, because the last couple times that we've done it, it's been with 27s, 15s, and we even used a 49 on that, 49 mag, that is. So those mags, though they get a lot of coverage and blend really well, they don't get that dense color packing. 7 mags seem to pack color the densest, but the least smooth. So it's just about what result you're looking for. And when you're in small nooks and crannies, like we'll be forced to be in now that we have the spider webs in, more or less all over the place. I mean, there are some spots you could get into with a bigger mag, but those 7 mag packs will be more likely dense than the larger mags. Sorry to spew all that. I don't talk about technical stuff all the time. So in regards to what else we did yesterday, we also did the teeth again. I was talking for a while about making these darker, and I still may end up doing that. Terry was really convinced that we could get the yellow out, and so this has been gone over with white and silver in the striations of the teeth that used to be like a kind of foggy black. Now they've been used. We used a silver opaque on those to try and kind of make it look like the teeth are more shiny or I don't know, sharp, I don't know, pointed. They're very, very bright right now. They won't remain quite this bright, but they'll be fairly bright when this is all settled. And I think it's good for them to stay bright. It's just that yellow hue really bugs me. It bugged me more the moment we put a harder outline around it. Terry was talking about putting, like relining the outside of the mouth around the teeth, but I actually don't think that that's the right call, because in this composition, the teeth are in front of what's in the eye here, all of the spacey portal stuff. Whereas if you line that, now everything is kind of at the same position. It's a little hard to explain, but it's depth. Whenever you're lining certain things, you're creating depth in different areas, and kind of the line often dictates where the subject is in the composition. And so I didn't think it was really wise at this point to do that. So if I want to, I can do that later. If not, I don't think I will want to. We'll leave it as is. With that said, those teeth have been done now 7 times, believe it or not. And the last time we covered them with a bone white and some white highlights. Bone white being another opaque, or something like an opaque at the very least. It's kind of like a browny white. And when we did that, Rick also covered up the skulls that used to be on my chest there. And so there used to actually be one less tooth on either side, and there was a skull in place of them. But Rick built teeth in over top of them, and you could never know now. But with that said, whatever the fuck happened when the first artist who ever worked on the teeth on my chest or abdomen or whatever, he put yellow in there, this really dark kind of bland yellow, and nothing else he ever put in was hard to remove or get rid of. But for whatever reason, the yellow in those teeth is just in there. And short of blacking it out, I have no idea how to get rid of it. I had someone comment that if I put purple over the teeth and then went over them with white or gray after, they may lighten up to like more of a steely tone. But I actually don't know if that's the case or not. And it's not that I'm adverse to taking those kinds of ideas and running with them or trying them. It's just, there's no proven science on any of this shit, and a lot of it is just figuring it out. So being that we've tried multiple opaques and white and things like this, and even some browny tones and those things, and that yellow doesn't want to leave, I have a feeling that adding more extreme colors to the mix is probably not wise. And I rarely take a walk on things tattoo related. If I really want to get there, I'll generally get there. But also during the first time I worked on those teeth, I think they got pretty scarred in, and subsequent sessions, ever since the second one even, they've bled a lot, and they hurt a lot, and then they hurt a lot after they're tattooed too. So even right now, it feels as though I was struck in the center with a baseball bat or something. It sounds extreme, but all of this stuff in here is very, very sore. It hurts to get worked on like crazy, even more than the inside or the outside here. And then after the fact, it remains sore for quite a long time. And so what that indicates to me is that they're fairly heavily scarred, and they're quite risen for a long time after they get tattooed, and the return is less than I would like. So it's not really a worthwhile investment in terms of what you get for the pain and the time put in. And if it were a more positive result from anything that we've tried, I would probably be open to hitting that upwards of another 5 times, realistically. But because we're getting so little for our efforts, it's not really that wise to keep going with it. And short of blacking those out and rebuilding them all together, which would be a long time of a very strange composition that would make sense to just about no one but me. And not that that's a huge deal breaker, because quite often my work doesn't make sense to people for a very long time. So many people are just now coming around, or they haven't seen my profile in a couple years, and they see all the new stuff that's happened, and they're like, oh wow, that really came together. But like, you lose a lot of people who can't see through the interim when you do things like that. And it's not to say that I really care. But even for my own mental health, it's like, do I really want to rebuild those teeth over black? Is it really even worth it? Are they really that bad the way they are? You know, these are the kinds of things that I ask myself. So for my own purposes even, that lemon doesn't seem worth the squeeze. And I do evaluate even my own decision making on what I'm doing next with my tattoos quite often. For example, I have a session coming up next week here with Terry, and it's going to be a pretty make or break session. And the thing is some of the stuff that I'm playing with here now, and I've mentioned this before, but it's like I'm in a black box like situation where I have tattoos that I like a lot and I enjoy a lot. I think they could be better, but they might not be improvable beyond a certain point. So, for example, this rose sleeve is subject to go through another change, and that change may be a bad one. It could be a bad one. It could be a bad one for a long time that ends up being a good choice, right? Like sometimes things take a while to materialize, and it will almost certainly seem like madness to almost everyone, especially those not paying very close attention. And I even imagine that 30 to 40% of the audience that is watching this one video where I detail this plan won't understand or will be put off when they see it. But these things can be done and done and done again, and eventually they can come out. But it's always like, do I really want to do 3 passes of a color on a rose that already looks good? And then consider that you may have to do 3 passes on each one, and then that's going to change the roses on my neck as well as the roses on my arm, and then the roses on my face, after it already was so much work to get them to where they were. Those are those kinds of things where it's like, it may be better in the end, but is it worth the road there? Or should my efforts be put somewhere else when these things are already fairly well established? That being said, I am in heavy contemplation about that one, and I wasn't really having a hard time wrapping my mind around it until I've gotten closer to it. I've had so much stuff in the way now that I wanted to get done before I got to this point that it was easy for me to just be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And now I'm, right up against that door where that's the next thing to do. And it does give me some pause because, for say what you want about the cultural impact of my project, there has been an immense amount of people that have been inspired by the work I've done. And I feel like it seeps into you eventually what people will think of your next step on this kind of ever-evolving art project. I am still piloting, obviously, but there's a significant amount of like, is this the logical next step, or is this just me trying to appease this group of folks that want this never-ending progression? Should I walk away from this thing now? Should I continue? It's a little bit like the video I made recently on Black Alien Project where he's walking away from his project, and it's like, realistically, that's probably wise because he's gotten himself to a point where anything he does further now is most certainly dangerous, and anyone who picks it up from where he's left it is almost certainly risking, death or illness or some other horrible thing that he would probably be more or less fine to reckon with, but someone else, were they not to have the established foundation that he has for that kind of work, it won't end the same way for him as it would someone with no pedigree of that sort of work or creation or destruction or whatever you want to call it. All of this is to say that sometimes I worry that some of the things that I want to do next aren't things that I would want to do if it weren't for this project. And so I always weigh heavily, is this something I want, or is it something that I think I need to do to service the demand, you know? And sometimes I walk it back on certain. I've had, as crazy as the shit is that I've done, that I have showed you guys, I've had some even more insane ideas. There was a version of, for example, this torso, all the purple and blue. There was a version of that would have just been just for science. I was thinking of doing light green and light yellow on one side, just to show the world that could be done on a large scale. And I had to walk that back because it was like, do I want to do that for me? Because I don't know that that's the case. Sometimes you get wrapped up in the mission, you know. Whereas most of what I've done, for the most part, is stuff that I really do enjoy. There are some cases where I call into question my own motives for certain things. So, and I think that anybody that's running any sort of social media feed that ends up in this kind of content creation cycle should probably ask themselves that question to make sure they're being honest. Because I see a lot of dishonest content creators out there they're doing things that they wouldn't be doing otherwise if it weren't for the sake of feeding the algorithm. Food for thought, and I'm sure most people aren't still watching now, but if you are, next time you find yourself, you know, doing something, ask yourself if it's for you or if it's for your audience, or if you have an audience, or for a loved one, or for whatever else. Because if it's for any other reason but for you, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.